Dear brothers and sisters, good morning, good afternoon. The fourth Sunday of Easter, which we celebrate today, is dedicated to Jesus the Good Shepherd. The Gospel says that the sheep hear his voice as he calls his own sheep by name. The Lord calls us by name. He calls us because he loves us. But the Gospel then tells us there are other voices not to be followed, those of strangers, thieves, and brigands who want to harm the sheep. These different voices resonate within us. There is God's voice, which speaks kindly to the conscience, and there is the tempting voice that leads to evil. How can we recognize the voice of the Good Shepherd rather than that of the thief? How can we distinguish God's inspiration from the insinuation of the evil one? One can learn to discern these two voices. They speak two different languages. That is, they have opposite ways of knocking on the door of our hearts. They speak different languages. As we know how to distinguish one language from the other, we know how to distinguish God's voice from the voice of the evil one. God's voice never forces us. God proposes himself. He does not impose himself. Instead, the evil voice seduces, assails, forces. It arouses dazzling illusions, emotions that are tempting but transient. At first, it flatters. It makes us believe that we are all-powerful. But then, it leaves us empty inside and accuses us, "You are worth nothing." God's voice instead corrects us with great patience, but always encourages us, consoles us always. It always nourishes hope. God's voice is a voice that has a horizon. Instead, the voice of the evil one brings you to a wall or a corner. Another difference. The voice of the enemy distracts us from the present and wants us to focus on the fears of the future or the sadness about the past. The enemy doesn't want the present. It brings to the surface the bitterness, the memories of the wrongs suffered, of those who have hurt us, and many other bad memories. Instead, God's voice speaks to the present. Now you can do good. Now you can exercise the creativity of love. Now you can renounce the regrets and remorse that hold your heart captive. It gives us energy. It always speaks in the present. In addition, the two voices raise different questions in us. The one that comes from God will be, "What is good for me?" Instead, the tempter will insist on another question. "What do I feel like doing?" What I feel like. The evil voice always revolves around the ego, its impulses, its needs. Everything immediately. It's like the capriciousness of children, everything right now. God's voice, instead, never promises cheap joy. It invites us to go beyond our ego, to find that true good, peace. Let's remember, evil never gives us peace. It causes frenzy first and leaves bitterness after. That's the style of evil. In the end, God's voice and the tempters speak in different surroundings. The enemy prefers darkness, falsehood, and gossip. The Lord loves sunlight, truth, and sincere transparency. The enemy will say to us, Close yourself up on yourself. Besides, no one understands and listens to you. Don't trust anyone. On the contrary, goodness invites us to open up, to be clear and trusting in God and in others.